Here we go. Part three, the final part to this case that we're doing alongside IBSC. We're so excited to go through this next part on the actual video. If you haven't gone back and watched part three, a reminder to just take a look at the links that we have posted here and listen to this voicemail. So, we had kind of a clinical challenge or update that our patient experienced. And you can see here in the text that she's been struggling a little bit with some of the education she's received and dealing with all the new medicines and how to use the equipment and the inhalers and the different devices that she has been given here. So you can pause this video if you need to, but we'll get right into the discussion questions for part three. So we do have a question here kind of focused on an ethical scenario that some of our paramedics may encounter in the home. We wanted to make sure that we're including some sort of discussion element here about the ethical and legal considerations of community paramedicine and practice in MIH. Molly, go ahead and take a look at question one. What's coming to your mind here?
Well, there's professional boundaries, right? And that's one of the test item in the IBSC outline. That's one of the thing is just what is the professional boundary, and then even personal boundaries. Community paramedicine, there's a much more intimate interaction that goes on with these patients because you get to know them, you have a relationship with them. And so there is a greater opportunity for temptation to cross boundaries inappropriately one way or the other. So I think that's one of the focuses of this exam is to make sure that we all know how to behave and behave in professional ways and that we're aware of how to set some of those boundaries. So in this case, she asked the paramedic to post on her social media account that she's okay. So what behaviors are needed to maintain some boundaries? So there's a lot of boundaries going on with that. There is the HIPAA, piece of that, just the patient privacy issues that go along with that. There's the whole issue of just, is that appropriate or not for you to do that or not? I would say no. And again, especially maybe in smaller communities or as you get to know these patients very well, you've got to be careful. Something that may seem harmless, like a patient giving you some food or patient offering to pay you money to mow their yard on your day off, anything like that could be considered. It can get out of hand. It can be inappropriate. So that's one of the things that you will certainly be tested on, is just knowing how to behave, is simply put. So
Yeah, and the legal side of it as well. At a certain point, you even cross the threshold, like you mentioned, right? With HIPAA or protected health information, you may find questions on the exam about various laws focused around health information, professional boundaries. You may have questions about power of attorney and living will, or data security and all of those pieces. So you could plug and play the scenario with any of those ethical or legal issues that you can encounter in community paramedicine. And you want to make sure as you're studying and preparing that those are part of your study plan because it's certainly relevant on the exam and also in practice here. Our final question for the clinical aspect of this case is focused on patient education. And again, we could run through the gamut here on all the different education, and we've already talked a little bit about making sure that we don't dump that all on this patient at one time. And that's
mm,
part of that ongoing building and trusting relationship, is there's a little bit each visit, right? What
mm.
are your thoughts, Molly, on just the highlights of patient education to start?
If I only got to pick two, and I have a personal rule of no more than three per patient encounter, because patients can't really, that's just my personal clinical thing. If I had to pick two, it would be make sure she knows how to inject the insulin. That would be number one. Show me, teach me, let me, show me how you're going to do this. And then also the use of the either nebulizer or inhaler, like what are her respiratory medicines? Show me how you're doing that. Show me how you're administrating that. And do you know what it's for? And then the third one, if I had to pick one, would be hypoglycemia, because that is still acute care or otherwise, hypoglycemia is still the biggest clinical risk with any patient that's going to be on insulin, but especially a patient that is newly on insulin. So,
And if you guys have not yet gone back and watched part one and part two in our discussions there, please go back and do so, because notice that the three pieces that Molly dug into there, they were the top of our care plan list, right? Which was the diabetes management and education around that, and also the COPD management to prevent hospital readmissions. And so, one step before that, we talked about, as you're being introduced to this program or this patient case or this scenario, what is the stakeholder goal? So I don't know if you're starting to pick up on a pattern, right? That when you build a program, you have these high level community initiatives, stakeholder priorities of reducing hospital readmissions, reducing ED visits, and that transitioned perfectly into the top priorities of the care plan. And then that transitions perfectly right into these top patient education pieces for, how to most acutely manage the diabetes, how to most acutely prevent the hospital readmission with COPD. And then number three was hypoglycemia, which we know is a big reason why a patient's going to end up back in the ambulance and in the as well. So I love that. I would echo 100%, right? And then the social issues, the immunizations, the falls prevention, the sodium or dietary changes, all of that, for the diabetic diet, all of that also is relevant, but just probably not one of the top one, two, three priorities. Okay. And then, the last question here, we know that a big domain for the IBSC CPC exam is focused on community health needs, right? Community needs assessments. And we want to make sure that anytime you are practicing in CP, anytime that you have a patient population that you're enrolling, that you are, starting and ending with what the community needs assessments are.
and you don't have to reinvent the wheel there, right? Tack on to some of the community health assessment that's already going on, either through the health department, your local clinics, the hospital. There's a lot of assessment that's required by Joint Commission, by other entities there. So you can piggyback onto that. And the last thing that I would add for purposes of taking the test, we say this so much in the MIH Academy. Remember that this test assumes that you are a leader in MIH and community paramedicine, and that even though it may not be part of your current role to collect data or to perform community health assessments, you are still required to know basic community health concepts. Do you know about population health? Do you know about basic epidemiology type things, like what is an incidence rate, a prevalence rate, just some of those really high level things in community health? You have to know and have the vocabulary to interact in that way so that you can be a part of that. And I think that's one of the things that the test also helps validate, is that you've got that knowledge base to be a part of this either now or in the future.
Yeah, and as we wrap up this case, so it's been such a joy. Thank you again to IBSC for allowing us to partner to offer this education opportunity. If you are thinking about getting board certified in community paramedicine, all the kudos. We're rooting for you. The best paramedics in the world are board certified, and we're advocating for you, and we want to be here and help you and support you. We have free resources in our Facebook group. We know that we provide a lot of opportunities and resources to the MIH Academy. So if we can help you, we'd love to. But number one, make sure that you spend some time really going through the IBSC CPC handbook, because that's going to break down the domains of what you need to know. It's going to give you some need to know test details, and really make sure that you have an understanding of what is it that you want to absorb. Molly, I know you usually give some guidance and advice for foundational CP knowledge. What do you think?
I think that everybody, before you take a test, make sure you know what's going to be on the test. And I think that everyone needs to take some type of basic foundational training course that is dedicated to the concepts of CP and MIH. You know, personally, I would not take certification exam just through self-study. I would want to take some type of formal training to make sure that my knowledge base is correct. Once you have a knowledge base for the things that are going to be on there, then I think the third thing is that everybody needs dedicated test prep. So test prep is different than building your knowledge. It's more about getting you ready to make good decisions on the test, having you set, you know, a plan for how you're going to prepare and how you're going to review for that test. So I think those are the three pieces. Know what's on the test, get your foundational knowledge up through some type of formal training. And then number three, make sure you're doing yourself a favor and doing adequate test prep so that on test day, you're going to get certified.
Awesome. Fully agree. Yep. Thank you to IBSC. Thank you to all of you who hung with us. We're excited for you. We're rooting for you. Touch base if we can support you further.